So, hello everyone. My name is Yuleidi Merida. I am a content designer and researcher at NAVA. I wanted to thank you all for joining me today. My pronouns are she, her, ella. I am bilingual. I speak English and Spanish. My background is in marketing communications. I used to work for global nonprofits such as International Planned Parenthood Federation, Care USA, and the United Nations Agency for Refugees. But over the past 3 years, I have been working with NAVA, and NAVA is a consultancy and public benefit corporations working to make government services simple, effective, and accessible to all. Lately, I have had the opportunity to work with multiple federal and state agencies here in the United States. And I wanted to share a little bit of today's agenda. I'm planning to talk a little bit about multilingual UX and UI design and why we need to make it a priority in the US today. I will also be sharing a little bit about why government services need to be inclusive and accessible. And I will share my top 5 recommendations if you're working on multilingual digital applications. And I will also share briefly the key learnings I have from testing and talking basically with Spanish speaking migrants over the past 3 years. I will try to leave about 5 minutes for questions you may have. And that's what I'm planning to do today. So let's get started. So let's talk a little bit about multilingual UX and UI. I don't really know how many of you work or know the basics of UX UI, so I will just share a brief definition of UX and UI because today's goal is not to expand on this topic. So, in digital design, we often use the terms UX and UI interchangeably. However, each term refers to a very specialized field. User experience is UX, covers a user's overall experience with your product, application, or services, while user interface design, which is UI, refers to the interactivity, look, and feel of a product, a screen, or web design. So, to summarize, I wanted to share this very general um, infographic of how it looks in reality. The UX design process will be at your left, and it involves market research, wireframes development, prototyping and testing, cross-functional collaboration between different disciplines and people in general, and all of this to deliver the best user experience you can deliver. On the other side, so on your right, the right of your screen, is UX design. And UX designers usually focus on the visual touch points a user goes through while using or navigating your application. This usually includes your fonts, colors, animations, any other images you can see. Let's think, for instance, when you use Instagram, you will sort of a pull down to refresh. You will use your thumb to do that. That is part of the UX UI design process. And similar to that, there are other interfaces designers, UI designers work with, not only digital interfaces on your phone. I'm thinking about more interactive interfaces such as Siri, Alexa, Google Assistant, etc. Both UX, UI, and UI, they work in collaboration. One explores the user experience in general, the other focuses on interactions. So, so Why is multilingual UX UI so relevant in the US today? The US, as many of us know, has long been home to more immigrants than any other country. And according to the US Census Bureau, in 2023, a record 47.8 million immigrants live in the US. So that is a lot of people. We need to design experiences and applications for. And about half of those immigrants from 1965 to 2023 are coming from Latin America, as you can see in this infographic. So why am I focusing on Spanish-speaking users? Even though not everyone coming from Latin America speaks Spanish. First, because it's my first language. I have the skills required to create Spanish digital experiences in Spanish and digital applications in general. I do love writing and talking in Spanish, and I don't often get to do that. But a lot of people in my community, they prefer the Spanish experience in every single way. So if I can help with that, that will be great. But also, there is a real need in the US market. The Hispanic population is the largest minority group in the US. And although the total number of Hispanics born and raised in the US is growing exponentially, meaning that they speak English, Spanish is still the most common non-English language spoken in the US homes. So there is a real need for this. And I wanted to share, this is based on my experience. For immigrants with little to no proficiency in English, language limitations and cultural obstacles have a considerable impact on their lives as they adjust to a new country. And this impact is not always positive. So what can we do to improve their experience? Because I work in government, I will be focusing on government services. And while I could talk all afternoon about best practices in UI or best practices in civic tech, which is how people talk about technology design for government services and applications, I will try to focus on what we can do from in our experience and my top 5 recommendations if you're working for multilingual users in general, and particularly for the government. So first, why government services need to be simple, effective, and accessible to all. First, because every single community and individual person, humans, including those most disadvantaged, they need to be able to participate fully in our society, our democracy, and our economy. Also, because it's a requirement. US federal and state agencies must guarantee non-discrimination and equal access to services for all. And also, because there is a requirement that states need to translate their websites into Spanish and other languages. But most importantly, all of these are things we need to do. Those are moral imperatives. But most importantly, because each time we design for everyone in our society, the user experience in general is better for absolutely everyone. So I wanted to share one example based on my experience last year, and because it's relevant in the right now. So after the devastation caused by Hurricane Helene and what is about to happen with Hurricane Hilton, and many people will be seeking help from the government and will be applying for government services. A lot of those people, if they are not super lucky, they will stay on the phone for hours waiting to get an interpreter in Spanish. Probably there is one unemployed worker with limited English skills that right now is waiting online to apply for disaster unemployment insurance. Probably this same person will need to apply also for housing assistance and food assistance. Those are three different applications, and you will be wasting hours and hours waiting on the phone. So what we can do to make life simple for those who are in these situations, because applying for public benefits can seem daunting for people whose primary language is not English. So my top 5 recommendations are: first, focus on trans adaptation. And I'm intentionally using trans adaptation and not localization or translations, because localization is about making the language work for the place you're using that language or that application, which will be super relevant to create applications in Spanish that work for the Spanish we speak here in the US, which is Spanglish for some communities. And there are things you shouldn't translate because it's easier to understand the English word for it. But trans adaptation goes beyond just translating into Spanish your application. Trans adaptation takes into account design. And why is this relevant? If you're creating an application in Arabic, the reading order will change from right to left. While when you are creating digital applications in Spanish, that change won't happen. You will continue to read from left to right, as in English. Other things will happen with the design, with the copy, because at least 1/3 of the space you need to fill in with content in English, that there will be an increase of 1/3 at least when you use Spanish, and you need to account for it. We deserve to be able to read every single word, have enough white space, and have as good as an experience that those who are reading the English application. My second recommendation is related, and it's about plain language. Although plain language is a term mostly used in English, it applies to Spanish as well, because the intention behind that is just making sure that your audience can understand the first time they read your content. They can understand what they need to do, what needs to happen, what everything is about, to make their experience easy. And in Spanish, because I write in Spanish, not as often, but a lot, grammar can be really complex. Sentences can get too long with a lot of subordinates and verbs, forms that are really, I don't know, extremely complex. So plain language really applies here. Also, because when you use plain language in English, it makes your life a lot easier when you are doing trans adaptation of content into other languages. My third recommendation, and I know I'm speaking a lot, will be about trauma informed. I'm talking about trauma informed here because my experience is with government services. So oftentimes, when you have someone applying for government benefits, they may be in a complicated situation. If you're unemployed, if a disaster just happened in your area, if you're applying for paid family leave because someone in your family is really sick and you need to look after them. In all of those situations, you are dealing with really stressful circumstances. So a trauma-informed lens helps you create and manage user research, content, and design in a way that do not re-traumatize your users and promotes well-being and safety. So why I recommend trauma-informed? First, you don't want to harm your users. You want them to love the experience, or at least make the experience easy to go through. but also because it helps ensure users' physical and emotional safety. You're not re traumatizing them. You're also sharing clear and consistent content and design. So it's clear what they need to do, how they need to navigate an application, which supporting information they need to provide, whether it's a social security number, ID, I don't know, pictures, pay stubs, whatever it is, they really want to know that beforehand. Also, because it helps people knowing what are their choices, and that helps them make an informed decision. So trauma informed when you're working in government services is really important. For other applications that deal with traumatic situations is also key to guarantee the safety of your users. So my fourth recommendation is probably something everyone know, is focusing on the user. Do human-centered design. Talk to your users. Learn about their needs, what they're really looking to do next, how the experience needs to look like for them, what you can actually deliver. Resources are limited, time is limited. So you need to find that comfy spot between what the user need, what you can do and provide as a digital experience, and all of this coming from a place of empathy. When we use human-centered design, the experience gets better for everyone from the very beginning because you are bringing users into the process early. So my fifth recommendation is about inclusive and accessible design. You want everyone, absolutely everyone, to be able to use your application and have a great experience with that. This means thinking about people whose first language is not English, or people with very limited English that would love to access an application in a completely different language. But we also need to think about people with disability or people that need to use assistive technology. How we make sure that the products, services, applications, websites we are creating can be used for those people, but can also be used for someone that only have access to a phone and need to complete a form using their phone, cell phone, or people in rural areas with limited, like low internet speed. They also need to complete forms online. So how we make sure everyone can access and enjoy our services. So this is a summary of my top 5 recommendations. There are a lot of others, but the hope is that you are using best practices for UX and UI first, and then making sure you are also incorporating these other top 5 into your approach when working for government services, and also creating multilingual applications. And then I just want to finish up by sharing my hot takes, or what I have learned from talking to Spanish-speaking migrants in the past 3 years. What usually happens is I am working on a digital application in English first, and then sometimes I get the chance to do the trans adaptation of that application or content into Spanish. Other times I just get to make it better by conducting usability testing, talking to the users, making sure everything, the experience is similar across languages. But in every single case, I can see a lot of difference between people and cultures of different people based on regions, countries, uh, communities, but also a lot of things we all have in common. And I will step back because I'm not one of the users at interview, I'm doing the interviews. But these are the things Spanish speaking migrants have had in common, at least the people I have the chance to interview, which is not representative of do not represent absolutely everyone. First, these Spanish-speaking migrants are really resourceful. Whatever blocks they are dealing with, they go out there and find a solution, which is also informed because what often happens, there is no Spanish version of the application or the form or the document they are looking at. So they need to either go to Google Translate and find out what's happening here, what does it say, what do I need to do, or they reach out to friends and families. They are linked to that is that these migrants are really action driven. They are more likely than other migrants to solve issues fast, whether they need to deal with an error message, getting access to sign-on credentials, that at least in the past 5 months, I learned is really taxing when someone says, use your last name and the password provided, and you are like, which last name, first, second, which one was used? So they know how to sort all of these situations out. These are like some of the basics, but there are a lot of things happening in their spaces between last names. You have three last names like De Armas, Rodriguez, all of those spaces, the length of our names. So they find ways to sort it out. Also, these users rely on their families and communities heavily. They are more likely to ask for help from these family members and community, and they also help each other a lot with translation, with figuring out processes, with helping different family members because I learned this, I will share with you, and this is what worked for me. So it's a community, it's a strong community in that sense. They value in-person interactions a lot. They would prefer in-person support over calling or emailing a federal agency, for instance, or a state agency. They will prefer to go to the office, talk to a person, explain absolutely everything, and figure out what is the best way to deal with any situation. They are genuine networkers. Like, this is something I really love because I also need it for my work. They will share with you absolutely everything. They are more likely than other groups to share and recommend digital services and applications to family members and friends. And they won't stop there. They will give you tips, guidance, every single link, they will share audios other people share with them. It's amazing, all the resources they have at their disposal. And in almost every single situation, they will prefer using Spanish on the phone, in general applications, etc. So that is something spectacular, to be honest. That is a real need, and I love working to try to meet that or satisfy that need as much as possible. So this is all I have for today. If you have any questions, just share in the chat. I will stay on for another 3 minutes. And this is my contact information. If you have additional questions or you want me to share some resources, please reach out to me via email or add me on LinkedIn, and I will share or support in any way I can. Let me see if I can see any. Thank you for all the congratulations and really nice words. I appreciate that. I will add everyone that shared their LinkedIn. I will add them. That will be great. Yes, no AI translations, please. It's terrible for the user experience. It doesn't work. It increases the time anyone needs to spend in that single screen because what they are reading do not make sense. It's not helping anyone. If there is no other choice, I understand we may go for that. But if you have the opportunity to work with an UX expert in translations or trans adaptation, that will make the experience so much better. Yeah. Yes, Cecilia. I work in NAVA PVC, so Code of America, we're friends. We work in a lot of projects together and share similar practices and everything. So Leanne, if you have any additional questions or any specific requests about research, um, more specific, just send me an email and I can share resources with you. There are a lot of public resources, including in Code of America, Code for America, in NAVA PVC. There are other organizations in New America sharing similar work. Just send me an email and I can share with you specific links or information that can help you. I think, well, the session is being recorded. I don't know how Techqueria is going to share it, but yes. And let's see. Okay. I think Roberto Ramirez has a question. If you want to type it in the chat. Okay, where can I learn more about translations versus transadaptation or localization best practices? There are different resources out there, but the reality is that oftentimes what happens is people use a term depending on preference, although they will be doing the same. If you send me an email, I may share specific links because I don't have those here right now. And I think they will start calling this session off to move to the next one. So anyone that wants more information or resources, send me an email or a text in LinkedIn, whichever is easier for you. I would love to share more.